I remember Doug making a huge dramatic statement on Facebook about his marriage to Lisa back in the day. He stated, and I quote, "Because sure, I have receipts if you want them. During the early stages of our marriage, Lisa and I came to the conclusion that although murder was a possibility, divorce was never an option. We chuckle when we tell our friends this, but we are dedicated to each other until the very end. However, that is not all." Additionally, he emphasized the need of husbands shielding their wives from any unfavorable ideas or allegations. In a Medium piece that was published in 2017, he wrote that you should actively combat any accusation that is made against your wife, regardless of whether or not it is accurate. Even if the accusation is only 1% true, it is still a lie. After that, he expressed his gratitude for the fact that you had created Lisa specifically for him. You are grateful for her eyes, her demeanor, her attractiveness, her knowledge, her ability to tolerate me, and her wonderful sexuality. That is exactly what he said. So how is it that you can go from penning love letters to Lisa about how she was built specifically for you to divorcing her and marrying someone else in the blink of an eye? Instead, a marriage that had lasted 30 years, during which time they had shared thoughts of starting a family and numerous memories, was suddenly shattered. Someone you have placed your complete faith in abruptly departs, only to begin a new chapter with someone else nearly quickly after their departure. Doesn't that sound like a story that was taken straight from a dramatic novel? This, however, is not a work of fiction. It's based on the true story of Dr. Doug Weiss, whose marriage is widely recognized therapist whose private life has suddenly become the subject of all the headlines in the newspaper. Just a quick question: would you mind giving that thumbs up button a quick press if you like this video? It does not mean that you are in agreement with the madness that is being shown. It simply helps spread the truth and get this video seen by more people. Their marriage to Lisa Weiss, which had lasted for 30 years, came to an abrupt end in a manner that has amazed many people, more fuel being added to the flames. Not long after Dr. Weiss remarried, the esteemed Dr. Weiss is a well-known and recognized expert in the field of marriage counseling. Joni Lamb is one of the co-founders of the Daystar television network. Additionally, he has spent decades assisting couples in repairing and strengthening their relationships, in addition to having written a number of books and gave motivational presentations. Disclosure: through dribbling is the worst in this place. You will learn a little bit and he will share some information with you. The more you learn, the more he reveals to you, and it seems as though you are always the one who needs to be the one to do the investigating. A man like him is not trustworthy. He lacks the spiritual and emotional maturity that the majority of addicts would not be able to achieve. The likelihood of you obtaining the complete truth all at once is extremely low, particularly in situations when there is no polygraph examination involved. As a result, dribbling is similar to the situation in which you obtain some knowledge, you are betrayed, and there is the trauma. You stand up a little bit and then you get punched once again. When you stand up, you are struck once more. This may continue for multiple months or even years. However, despite the fact that his own marriage to Lisa Weiss, which lasted for 30 years, ended in a manner that has left people startled and doubting, the man who was providing the advice, the relationship between Doug and Lisa Weiss lasted for more than 3 decades, which is equivalent to a lifetime in years spent married. From the outside looking in, it appeared as though they were the ideal couple there could ever be. A well-known marriage therapist, Doug had built his profession on assisting couples in navigating the ups and downs of love and commitment all throughout their lives. In his publications, talks, and counseling sessions, he advocated for the concepts of love, trust, and loyalty as the cornerstones of a healthy marriage. He spoke with a great deal of enthusiasm about these principles. In the eyes of many, Doug and Lisa were more than just husband and wife. They were a team. They worked side by side, attended events together, and were involved in the community of their church. Doug's advice was not only motivational, it was also taken seriously by those who looked up to him as a model for healthy and long-lasting relationships. His message was quite clear: couples could triumph over even the most difficult obstacles if they put in the effort and had faith. However, contrary to popular belief, things are not always what they appear to be. In spite of the fact that he has been successful in guiding others through the challenging processes of marriage, as for Doug's own relationship with Lisa, it was not exempt from difficulties. There is no such thing as a perfect marriage, not even an expertly constructed one. Lisa clarified that it was not the case that they were continuously competing with one another or having significant conflicts. On the contrary, she had the impression that Doug was gradually withdrawing from the relationship. He was not as engaged or connected as he had been in the past, and this caused her to feel isolated within the marriage. Despite the fact that they were still together, a greater challenge for Lisa was the emotional distance that existed between them than any disagreement could have been. It wasn't just about the things they said or didn't say, it was about the sensation that Doug wasn't as present in their relationship as he formerly was. As time went on, it became very evident that something was missing and they were unable to fix it. Considering how fast Doug remarried after the couple's divorce, it caused even more concerns to be raised. It was speculated by a few individuals that the emotional distance that Lisa had been referring to might have been connected to his new relationship. Could it be that he had already moved on emotionally prior to the finalization of the divorce? He was always working and busy, and Lisa felt as though she was taking a back seat to everything else in his life. Imagine being married for such a long time and feeling as though you are not even on the same team anymore. That is where Lisa found herself. People who were close to them stated that Doug was completely focused on his career. Then there was the pressure that Doug's public image was putting on him. I mean, this guy wasn't just some random individual, he was a marriage counselor, and his entire profession was to assist people in repairing their relationships. Therefore, when his marriage began to break apart, it struck him in a different way. The fact that a man who taught other people how to save their marriages was unable to keep his own marriage together was something that could not be explained to anyone. Scripture was repeated in Lisa speaking. There have been times when we have disobeyed, but this does not correspond to what you have spoken. She meditated on Matthew 1:99. I will tell you this, if a man divorces his wife and marries another person, he is guilty of adultery unless his wife has been disloyal to some other person. Lisa did not engage in unfaithfulness. On the other hand, what got people talking was the rapidity with which everything occurred after the breakup. Within a short period of time following his divorce from Lisa, Doug tied the knot with Joni Lamb, who was one of the co-founders of Daystar television network. Yes, you read it correctly. It was only a few months ago that was the moment when the inquiries began to pour in. Was Doug already considering getting a divorce prior to the event that took place during the time that he was still married to Lisa? Had he already begun to have feelings for Jackie? Also, why is there such a rush to remarry after being married to someone else for 30 years? The entire circumstances as if a switch was flipped, and all of a sudden when people looked at Doug, they were seeing him in a whole different way. Whether it was because of his decisions, his timing, or whatever might have been going on behind the scenes, there is one thing that is certain: it left a lot of people scratching their heads. Speculations began to circulate, and they were not very pleasant. There was a rumor going around that Doug and Joni had known each other for a considerable amount of time. Both were well-known figures in the Christian world and collaborated on various projects together. Even further, there were many who asserted that their relationship had developed into a close one even before Doug and Lisa's marriage ended. Naturally, this caused a lot of people to raise their eyebrows. Is it possible that Doug had already developed an emotional connection to Joni when he was still married to Lisa? Because of the date of his remarriage, speculation was only stoked, and it became difficult for people to avoid wondering whether there was something more significant going on behind the scenes. In the meantime, Lisa Weiss was not going to remain silent after everything that she had been through. She believed that people deserved to hear her side of the story more than anything else, in a message that was spoken from the heart. Lisa: it was painful for me when he made the decision to divorce me. I did everything in my power to save our marriage, and it was even more painful when he married Joni Lamb so soon after we divorced. It caused me to ask myself a lot of questions. Lisa wasn't angry that Doug had moved on. She didn't anticipate him to remain unmarried for the rest of his life. However, the rapidity with which he began a new relationship gave her the impression that their 30 years of marriage were irrelevant. It seemed as though their existence and their memories had been erased in an instant, similar to how their shared past had been erased. What made things even more difficult for Lisa was the fact that everything she did was public, and she felt as though her suffering was on display for everyone to see. It is difficult enough to go through a divorce, but when the entire world is watching, it is an even greater level of hurt. And when Doug remarried so quickly, it felt like another blow, making it more difficult for Lisa to absorb what was occurring. According to Lisa, the most difficult aspect was letting go of the life she had envisioned for herself with Doug. She had clung to the dream that they would be able to work through their issues and grow old together, but when Doug abruptly left and began a new chapter in his life, she realized that their future was no longer a possibility. While the grief was still present, Lisa made an effort to find solace in the memories that they had enjoyed together. When you are going through a difficult time emotionally, she stated that one is prone to forgetting the enjoyable times in spite of the fact that it all ended in grief. She was aware that there were years of love and happiness still to come. It was important for Lisa to remember that healing was about taking things one day at a time. She allowed herself to feel the pain, but she was aware that she needed to go forward even if it was a difficult process. She believed that with the passage of time she would be able to find calm once more. In the case of Doug, he never disclosed the reasons behind the dissolution of his marriage to Lisa. Others speculated about what actually took place and whether or not his whirlwind relationship with Joni Lamb had begun long before the ink on his divorce papers had dried. His silence left others wondering about what actually took place. Things became much more difficult as a result of Joni Lamb's involvement in this scenario. Having been one of the co-founders of Daystar, she was not only a well-known individual, but she was also a symbol of the Christian principles that are promoted by the network. Within a short period of time after Doug's divorce, people began To wonder whether or not her connection with Doug interfered with the family values that Daystar asserts she upholds. And then there was the shocking revelation Joni terminated her son Jonathan Lamb's employment at Daystar. Jonathan had been an integral part of the network for many years, so the decision came as a complete surprise to everyone. It left people wondering whether or not personal drama had made its way into the leadership of one of the most important Christian communication networks. Even more worries regarding Daystar's future were raised as a result of the termination. Could the network continue to emphasize the importance of family values and religious beliefs despite the fact that its leaders were at the heart of such public controversy? Perhaps it was time for Daystar to rethink the ways in which their personal and professional lives intersect in a setting that is so open to the public. We are looking forward to hearing from you. An enthralling romance between Doug and Joni. Both the personal confessions made by Lisa and the shakeup that occurred at Daystar have caused a lot of people to talk. Additionally, we are interested in hearing your thoughts on the matter. Does Doug's recent remarriage to Joni represent a new beginning, or does it run against the principles that they both advocate for in the event that it concerns prominent members of the Christian community? How do you feel about the idea of personal lives being made public? Do you believe that the situation at Daystar is an indication of more serious problems, or do you believe that it is simply the reality of managing a family-oriented organization? Leave a comment below and let us know. If you want to stay up to speed on stories that are important, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel. I appreciate you watching.